Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Herman.
Good morning and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I am your host, Lois Herman, and I hope to inspire you with positive messages and to help make a difference in our world. Our world is experiencing a lot of chaos and stress right now, but when we focus our thoughts and energies on what we love to do and what we can do to make a difference, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and more peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower those around us. If we each do what we can to help make small shifts in awareness, from kindness to healthy habits and simple happiness, we create ripples of hope. Join us as catalysts for positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you're inspired by today's show and know that today we're dealing with a lot of stress. I know that this storm is happening. There's a lot going on. A lot of people are really under pressure, different types of pressure. And we know that we have to hunker down, those of us. I want to introduce Art here. He's awesome. So I'm going to be talking more back and forth a little bit with Art today. I don't have a different guest, but Art's a fabulous guest. And Art was telling me he was here during the storm of 78 as a kid, and you were out. What were you doing?
I think as I remember, we were home from school, and I was playing in the snow as often as I could. So I don't have like vivid memories of it. It was just like a big snowstorm to me.
Yeah.
So,
and you were talking about snow forts, digging in the snow forts.
Oh yeah.
So
we did all that stuff as kids. We'd hang out with the other kids, and we just make the best out of it.
Yeah, and that was maybe a few years ago, right? Well, it was 78.
Maybe like 5, 10, 30 some odd years ago, yeah.
And nowadays, unfortunately, our poor children are listening to the news, the media, and they are dealing with the stress the way we are. And what we need to do is help to insulate them by insulating ourselves. I was at the grocery store yesterday, and that's a whole other story. But the woman there said that she has small children at home, and she's put big kites up and is doing a lot of creative things to help keep her children from being afraid. Yeah. Treating this as a time of, we're just all hunkering down, and this is okay. It's good to stay in and find different creative ways. And I understand that this is a time of world crisis with the COVID-19 virus pandemic. And many in the past have feared nuclear bombs. However, this little tiny microscopic nasty bug has stopped us in our tracks. It's given us reason to pause, to notice, to slow down, and to reassess. So right now, join me, because most of you are not driving. There are only a few people out on the road here. Most of you are at home. So take a minute and breathe with me. Gently blow up your belly balloon. Nobody's looking. Blow up your belly balloon. Take a nice, deep, gentle breath. And as you let it out, relax your shoulders, relax your neck, relax your jaw. Feel all those muscles that are tensed. Feel them relax. Take another gentle breath into your belly. Fill your body with oxygen, with endorphins, with relaxing chemicals that allow yourself to relax. You can even do this if you are driving, by the way. Just keep your eyes open. Take yourself to a peaceful place and think about your favorite place. Some of you, it might be the beach. Imagine the blue sky overhead and the sunlight shining down on the waves of the ocean, and just let it dance and play on the waves of the ocean. And the ocean washes over the sand and smooths the sand. Smell the salt in the air. Feel a gentle breeze caressing your face, gently blowing your hair, letting you feel cool in the warmth of the sunlight. Many of you would prefer to go for a hike, a walk in the mountains, a wonderful mountain path. Maybe you're with Jackie, noticing the small animals scampering about. Maybe it's a summer morning and the sunlight is filtering through the leaves of the trees, creating that beautiful misty beam of light. Feeling safe and comfortable. So think of your favorite place and be there and allow yourself to relax and be at peace. This storm will pass. The challenge with this storm is we don't exactly know when. Yeah, nor'easters come and they go, but the challenge with this one is it's the uncertainty, the fear of the unknown. Excuse me. And we don't know when it's going to pass. But we do know that it will pass. And that's what's most important. We are at a wake-up call, though. We're at a crossroads. Because the actions that we take now and how we handle this crisis will affect our individual future and the future of those around us. It's necessary to shift the enormous amount of negativity that we're experiencing in today's world to a more positive. And this situation is definitely affecting many, many lives. Many have been laid off or lost their jobs, or their income is depleted during this time and they're forced to stay home and they're worried. Others are working overtime to a point of exhaustion. Hospital staff, first responders, grocery clerks, cleaning staff, and truck drivers. Amazon and other fulfillment agencies are all overtaxed and stressed. And they're also out there in fear of catching this virus. So we have different types of fears going on, but all fear is detrimental to our bodies, to our minds, to our spirits. And staying home might be really great for us introverts. I'm an introvert. I'm happy as a clam staying at home. And especially if you kind of like who you're living with. Some struggle with being cooped up with someone they're uncomfortable with, and that would be difficult. So I read somewhere, my husband and I have adopted this because we're both home together. And I get along well with my husband, but we've decided that we have an imaginary visitor who's staying with us, and we've named her Claire. And we blame everything on Claire. Claire left that coffee cup out. Yeah, well, Claire, and my husband said, yesterday Claire left a pot of water on the stove to boil. And Claire actually took a bite of his cheesecake. We're going through the freezer and getting rid of some of the stuff that we've kept in the freezer. So we're kind of clearing the freezer out of stuff that's a little freezer burned. But still, he's like, yeah, Claire's been here. It just makes it light. It keeps us from blaming each other. We have this imaginary visitor. So who might you have in your home that you could blame some stuff on so that you avoid argument? And then there are extroverts. Art, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm more of an introvert, but I can be extroverted depending on the people I'm around.
Yeah.
You know, like close friends, people that I really get along with, I'm probably a little more open and outgoing.
Sure.
But generally, like if I'm working or whatever, depending on the job, I'm more like focused on working. I kind of keep
Sure.
to myself.
Yeah.
And even just on my own time, I just kind of stay to myself too.
Yeah.
It really depends on what the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I hear you. I'm the same. I'm happiest by myself or happiest one-on-one helping somebody.
Right.
It's actually awkward for me to be out in the public eye doing presentations and things. I can do it and I will do it and I'm called to do it, but that's not my normal. I don't have this desire to be out there on the central stage, really.
No.
You know,
You don't want to be on American Idol or Who's Got Talent or anything like that?
I have
You
to
don't want to
tell
do
you,
that?
I do love American Idol. They're really funny this season. Or the past several seasons. The judges are great. And
I can't say I've ever watched a single episode of
Really?
American. I've seen bits of it, but I remember a show. I don't know if anybody remembers a show. I'm probably one or two who do a Star Search.
Okay.
Ed McMahon used to host that. I remember you was talking about Johnny Carson earlier, and so Ed McMahon, and I think he had a female co-host with him. But yeah, you saw a lot of talented people come through those.
That's what surprises me.
And it still continues. You still have these big, bright and glamorous talent shows, and so not much has changed, really.
Well, I'm impressed with the number of people who have such innate talent, and then there are others that are like, oh my goodness, you can only laugh.
They try.
They try.
They put themselves out there, not thinking that they're going to be like, nah, thanks, but no thanks. Don't call us. We'll call you, kind of thing.
Those are the extroverts.
Yeah.
They want to be out there, even though they're not really good at what they do.
Exactly.
But extroverts are probably the ones that are having a difficult time staying indoors right now, staying cooped up, because they want to be out there. So I encourage the extroverts to find things to do to entertain yourselves and to entertain others. Do get creative, do some things to get yourself going. So you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman. This is WSMN 1590. We're here every Sunday morning, and I often have a guest. So today, my fun guest here is Art. He's the sound guy. He keeps the station going. So I'm just I've kind of hoodwinked him into entertaining you with me.
Okay, absolutely.
So
that's what I'm here for, is to help out. So.
Awesome, thank you. So this virus has gone viral, if you think about it. And it's causing us to get back to basics. My mother used to do the white glove treatment every week and clean, make sure I'd cleaned all the doorknobs and light switches and all that. And I have to say, I probably have not had my house as clean in 40 years since I left. So taking that extra time to do what we're supposed to do, it's teaching us, remembering the hygiene that we need to be practicing, one. But the other thing that's kind of cool is I'm taking that extra hour a day that I would spend commuting. What are you spending that extra hour a day? I mean, I just have a 30-minute commute these days. It's not too bad. But that's an extra hour, and I'm actually cooking healthy meals. So what are you doing with that extra hour? Now, and many of us aren't even getting dressed in the morning and those of us who wear makeup, you probably don't wear makeup, but still, we...
Not anymore. No,
not anymore.
I'm just kidding.
But, we've got extra time so that we can do some extra things around the house. And yet, this is a time of uncertainty. So what you have to do is give yourself a dose of news. Dose yourself. Don't immerse yourself. Give yourself a little, maybe check in a couple of times a day to see what is going on in the world. Just dose yourself with your family, with things that give you joy. And I wanted to share, who am I? Like I was saying, I'm an introvert. I'm a medical professional, 40 years in medicine. I used to work the emergency room, so I know what it's like to be under extreme stress. And when you're in that emergency room mode, it's the subconscious that's going. You don't even think when you've got a trauma coming in. You're just on autopilot. You just do what instinctively comes to you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of friends who have worked in the medical profession throughout my life, and some people in my own family. I never went into medicine myself. I've worked in a hospital. I worked at Eastern Maine Medical Center, but I worked in the cafeteria, so it's not like a big thing. It is, but you're providing food to everybody, so you got to eat. But in the hospital, I mean, you're bringing food to patients and so on and so forth. But I never really got to see like the rush of ambulances coming in and people being gurneyed in at high speed. You're in a critical spot, but I mean, I'm very grateful and thankful to nurses and doctors that work in that situation. And I try to make it a point, if I ever have to go to a hospital or whatever, that I make a note to thank a nurse for at least doing their job, because they're doing something that a lot of people would not have the stomach to do.
That's right.
And they have to put up with a lot of crap.
Boy, they do. Yes.
It's
but
terrible.
you did have to practice a lot of good hygiene while you were
of course,
especially.
Yeah.
So I have a client that's a nurse, and she was saying that right now what they're having to do is they leave their clothes at the hospital. And when, put on their their street clothes when they leave, and then she's even got a setup in her garage to where she leaves the clothes, her travel clothes, outside, and she does her own form of just cleaning before she goes into the house, because she's got a small child and she doesn't want to bring what she's exposed to at the hospital. So they're having to take extra measures to keep their families safe, because they're on that front line. They're the ones that are helping people, and they're the ones that are most likely to catch this virus. So
I remember plenty of days, certain floors where there was an infectious disease floor. Let's say you like floors. Each floor is assigned its own. How do I say that? Ward, depending on what your condition is.
right.
There's the cancer floor, there's the bacterial and viral floor, there's the broken bones, heart. There's
a psych ward.
Yes, and so as a porter. Back to that, I would go past a lot of rooms that had been quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, we were allowed to go in, but we had to put on a mask, put on gloves.
Yes, isolation techniques.
The thing is, wash your hands first. You had the regular soap also, and then you had a special sort of purplish or pinkish soap.
Yes.
And you had the foot pedal at the floor, just there you go, and then you dry your hands off with paper towels. And then you put the gloves on.
Right.
Put your mask on, grab your tray, and you knock on the door. If it had a pink sign on it, you knew that was quarantined room.
Absolutely.
With special exceptions for entrance and egress and so forth. And, it's kind of tricky in those situations. You just follow what the protocols say. It's usually, the pink sign, it tells you how to enter the room.
Step by step, what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're trained in that when we work in the hospitals, when we're hospital professionals. And that's what we're being asked to do right now, is just to stay, practice general hygiene, and staying home helps to prevent the spread. And I have a very sad story, and I know that this is about inspiring hope, but I'm going to share this sad story to help you understand how important this is. So I had a friend back in my early days where she was working with a patient that had encephalitis, and she didn't practice the great procedures that we're instructed to do, and she had an infant child. And she went to the daycare, picked up her child, and within days the child developed encephalitis, and within weeks was dead. So it is a terrible, terrible story, but it's a wake-up call. We have to pay attention. This virus is not something to be messed with. We have to take precautions, and it's important. So, but you know what? It's spring. It's a time of renewal. It's a time of regrowth. So we're lucky that we've been given this forewarning. The poor Chinese people had no warning. Neither did the Italians of what was coming. We know. So we can take precautions and prepare. And, how bad is it that we can stay at home and watch TV or do whatever? We're quarantined, but it's not like we're quarantined. Our civilization has been through world wars. We've been through genocide. It's not like we're quarantined in the concentration camp. Hello, guys. We're home. We're comfortable. Find things to do.
Or you've been locked in your homes by the authorities.
Exactly. We're not,
they're standing guard around outside somewhere.
Exactly.
So, no, it hasn't come to that. I don't think it ever will. I mean, I was trying to say earlier, and I got distracted, but noticing how empty the streets are here around downtown Nashua, and I live nearby, and it's still quiet over there too. And it seems like everybody so far that is absent from the public has gotten the message.
Yes.
To stay inside,
it's important.
Or at least kind of minimize your travels out and about if you don't have to be, like non-essential.
Exactly.
Trips to the store. You don't need to go back and forth all day long. Just get everything you need, and while you're there,
right,
and then stay in for the rest of the day. And if you have to go back out,
right,
then of course you would go back out. No, the authorities are not going to harass you for that.
Right.
It's not come to that.
Well, it's that way, I think, in California, in some cities.
Yeah, the whole state is, I think, on on house arrest.
Right.
So-
And the beautiful thing about being here in New England and in New Hampshire particularly, most of us live somewhat rural, so we can get out and we can work in our gardens. I feel for people who are stuck in apartments, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit more constrained. But we can get out, and we should get out and just enjoy the beauty of nature. We're talking about the grocery store. I did a webinar on Thursday night that gave you some specific tips on what you can do to stay healthy. And my guest was Dr. Laura Chan, who is a naturopathic doctor. And she gave some specific things we need to do to keep our immune system vital and healthy and strong. She actually gave a list of supplements that we should be taking and foods we should be eating. And she really inspired me. So I went to the grocery store yesterday to get some more, to stock up more on those leafy greens. Well, my husband usually does the shopping, so I hadn't been to the store in a while, and it was very interesting. The shelves that were bare were the bread, the canned goods, the junk food, and the paper goods. So years ago, when I was first diagnosed with celiac, I was told by the grocer, shop the perimeter of the store. That's where you're going to find your nutrients. So let me tell you, when I don't usually go down those aisles unless I really need to, but I kind of was just poking my head down there. That's what was empty. But do you realize the produce section was completely loaded with food? There was no depletion. The produce was healthy, good. It was absolutely fabulous. Even speaking with the fish market guy, he's still getting fresh fish every day. It's the frozen fish that he's having a hard time with, but he's getting fresh fish. So shop the perimeter, guys. That's the stuff that we need to be eating to boost our immune system. And if you want the particulars, I have actually posted that webinar on my YouTube channel. Right now, the best way to get to that, and all of these radio shows are all on my YouTube channel. I'd love it if you could please subscribe, because if I can get 100 followers, then I can have, it'll just say Lois Herman. Right now, it's a bunch of letters and numbers. But the best way to find it is to go to my website, loisherman.com, and right on the front page it says subscribe. So please do that. But I'm listing all this stuff free to help people to boost their immune system, to give people ideas as to how to stay calm during this time. There's a centering exercise similar to what I just did with blowing up your belly balloon. I have a centering exercise that you can download there that you can look at and watch as often as you like. You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590. I'm here every Sunday morning, and George plays the show a couple times during the week, I understand. So, as I was saying, I'm a retired medical professional. I'm also a board-certified clinical hypnotist, and I help people to find peace of mind in all of their crisis in life. I myself have been through some intense crisis, so I found the value in hypnosis to helping myself and my children, and that's why I ended up in this second career to take this on as a profession. But, I love seeing clients. I'm still seeing clients via Zoom, so anybody who is interested, you can reach me. You can schedule your own appointment right there at loisherman.com. There's on the contact page. You can just click on and schedule an appointment. And I'm encouraging people who are smokers, this is the time to quit, guys, because this virus is going to affect many of us. And I was an ex-smoker. I have some issues with my lungs, which is why you hear me coughing. I got a nasty virus in February. I'm still recovering. So I encourage people to get yourself healthy. And if you've got a local hypnotist in your area, that's great. Like I said, I help people via Zoom. I've been doing this for years. I have clients all over the world. It's a wonderful form. I actually saw someone day before yesterday. She was kicked back in her car. You don't have to be in your house. You can be, but it's a wonderful form.
Yeah, I don't think, as long as you're taking the necessary precautions, and it seems like it's not asking too much to, keep a little space between you and some other people without necessarily being paranoid about it, but in just wearing a mask or gloves. I've seen a lot of people doing that lately, but there's no reason exactly why, or necessarily I should say, that you shouldn't just go on with your life as usual.
Yes.
It's going to be a little strange for a while, as I think we're all have noticed within the past week's time.
Yeah.
It seemed like we knew it was coming, at least in this region. I mean, I've been kind of following a little bit what's been happening in Mass, and right now, presently, they're up to 525 infected people.
We're pretty lucky in New Hampshire right now. Yeah.
They're still getting results back. But,
yeah.
I mean, but still, in all of that, just try not to take life for granted necessarily, because
Exactly.
it is fragile. We feel invulnerable at times when we feel good.
Yes.
And we're going about our lives without really much encumbrances and so forth. But something like this comes along. Yeah, you feel fine now. You just don't know. But still, in the meantime, live your life.
And that is, I think, one of the biggest
just,
fears is the fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or what's misunderstood.
Mm-hmm. And yet, this is sort of a wake-up call. It is a crossroads, because we may never go back to live in the old life. And the old life is one of frenzy and frenetic. It is interesting how it's like, okay, I don't have to be in such a hurry. Already I'm feeling calmer, and I tend to teach, and I tend to be fairly calm, but my husband's sleeping in a little bit later every morning instead of having to get up, and he's already noticing that he seems to be calmer. We're having wonderful conversations. It's a time of a reset, of renewal, of checking out what's most important.
Yeah, and if you I don't know if your husband works or not, but
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure. Yeah, so if he's an early bird, to get ready for work, I am too, and I understand that. Now you find yourself, okay, well, it feels like a little vacation, a few extra days off, but I have a date to go back to work, but I'm not gonna rely on that, because nobody really knows what's going on. I mean,
This could be weeks.
They have numbers now, but those numbers can change
Exactly.
very quickly. So I may not be going back by that date.
That's right.
You know, so I meant date when I said numbers, but so I may as well either start looking for another job in the meantime.
Well, Amazon's hiring.
Yes, they are, and they're actually not too far from here.
Yeah.
They're right on a bus route connected to where I live. So I actually applied for them a few months ago, and I was getting automated text messages when they were giving me job alerts, but they didn't have the time and location that I needed for here, because I don't have a car. So I kind of like to try to keep it as like nearby as possible.
There's a lot of different people who are helping in different ways. People are making masks for the first responders. There's a lot of different things that people can do. So yes, you're right. It's somewhat like a vacation, but at the same time, those of us who are still working, my husband is still working, but from home, so he's having to discipline himself to get up at his regular time, and get ready. Doesn't necessarily have to put on the suit, but he's got to we have to allow ourselves to stay somewhat in a somewhat of a structure in order to keep our daily routine the best as possible.
Yeah, we don't want to devolve into anarchy and chaos. It's every man for himself, and
total
just
slobs.
You forget all about the basics of making society work, and you just go back to being I don't know, marauders and people. I don't see that happening.
No, although I have heard that they're. No, I'm not even going to go there. I want to tell you, talking about the season of spring, that I did do some research on this, because I've mentioned it twice now and I wasn't so clear. This is the season of Passover. Now, for those of you who are unaware, you can Google it and get a little bit more information. But this was in the Old Testament, a story of when the Jewish were spared from the plague in Israel's deliverance from oppression. So it says that in the Old Testament, it says that God helped the Israelites by inflicting 10 plagues upon the Egyptians to get the Pharaoh to release them from slavery. Now, the last of the plagues was the death of the firstborn son in every family. So the Israelites were instructed by God to mark the doorposts of their homes with the blood of a slaughtered spring lamb, stay inside, and pray. And upon seeing this sign, the Spirit of the Lord knew to pass over, and the firstborn of these homes were spared, hence the name Passover. So I find it interesting that we're at that same kind of place where we are instructed to stay home, and many people have lost the meaning of prayer. Now, prayer, it can be many things. It could be meditation. It can be connecting with nature. But prayer is the art of asking for help, for healing, for protection. We have been told by Gaia, and I'm going to go into this in a minute, that the plagues were actually naturally occurring events. One followed the other. So how do we know in this day and age that the 10th plague was just one night? It may have lasted days or weeks where the Israelites stayed inside and allowed the disease to pass over them. History has a way of repeating itself. So let us learn at this time. Let's stay inside. Let's pray in whatever form that feels comfortable to us, and let's let this disease just pass over. Now, for Christians, this is the season of Lent, and it's to honor the 40 days where Jesus prayed before his crucifixion. The intention of Lent is to prepare for the celebration of Easter through prayer, fasting, and sacrifice. So I would invite you, instead of giving up chocolate, give up fear. Pray. Trust that all will be well. Give up the news. And think of this as a forced fast, sacrificing the negative, and go into the prayer for health, peace, and an end to suffering for those who are sick. Sending positive energy, positive thought to those who have contracted this nasty disease, helping them to support them through positive intention through this time. Instead of sending anger, send positive thought. So Max Lucado says, instead of looking ahead with fear, look up with faith. So for those in the line of fire, those that are in the hospitals who are risking their lives to help us stay safe, let us offer energies of prayer, protection, health, and safekeeping to them. So as we find whatever form of prayer works in our hearts, let's collectively join together during this time of introspection to send positive energy. And you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590, and you can listen in every Sunday morning. And all of these shows are still on my YouTube channel, and I would encourage you to check them out because we've had some amazing people that have shared stories about getting out into nature, Native American culture, and what they're doing. There's so many positive stories that because I typically have a guest on and I invite them to share their story. So today, the story that I'm wanting to share has to do with a story that was given to me. Now, one of the things that I do, as I said, I'm a hypnotist and I'm a positive, I help people to shift into the positive. There are a couple of my favorite books out there. One is called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. And he talks about the energy of emotions on a 0 to 1,000 level, 1,000 being enlightenment, Christ consciousness. Art, what do you think is the lowest level energy?
The lowest level energy, are we talking? We're not,
emotions.
Emotions. Well, probably depression would seem to be pretty low on the scale, not as its impact or importance on the psychology of an individual, but is certainly, if you had to put it like from dark to light, depression, resentment, guilt, or let's say unnecessary guilt or self-inflicted guilt, anything kind of the shades of grays of those.
Have you read the book?
No.
You are right on.
But I've read a lot, so.
Yeah, because the lowest level energy is guilt and shame, which leads to depression. Absolutely. Because it's a paralyzing energy. Because coming from an ultrasound background, I dealt with frequency vibrations, even in my medical field. And that low level energy is it's paralyzing, it's immobilizing, and depression is compressed. So even anger and fear are a little bit higher, but they're still negative emotions. So if we can get ourselves up to a higher level energy, we see the positive that's out there. What happens is when we're vibrating in a level of say we're vibrating in a level of anger, everywhere we look, it's like attracts like. everywhere we look is the energy of anger. All the other energies are there. We just don't see them because we're not in that lens. If we can shift our energy out of anger, blame, shame, guilt, negativity into one of hope, of positive energy, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we're not in Kansas anymore, right? We can see all those positive things are there. We just didn't see them when we were physically vibrating emotionally at a lower level vibration.
Yeah, and what happens is, and I this is just a summary and opinion of what I've, I try to read off and on. I do like psychology, and one of the things that, which put a name to it for me, was reading about how people get, and even myself included, I'm not immune from feeling depressed or guilty or having a bad emotional or psychological time, called a positive feedback loop. And that is, you get so stuck in your own darkness. Mm-hmm. It's all you think about. So
exactly.
as you say, where you can't shift lenses to see the good in things over the negative, or what you perceive as the negative, you get stuck there.
Right.
And it's really easy to do.
It is. Absolutely.
It sucks you in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot easier to allow yourself to feel negative for whatever the reasons happen to be. And I'm not saying, like, if you're somebody who has, let's say, been through actual trauma versus trauma that you imagine. So when you're always down on yourself, just not because anything has actually happened to you, but you just have that way of thinking.
Yes.
You find yourself going round and round and round with that same thought.
Exactly.
So it becomes a black hole unto itself. It keeps you in and keeps you in and keeps you in, and it just gets a really tight grip on you, and it's hard to break out of that. And
you are so right. And then when we watch this negativity in our media, it feeds into that black hole. And this is part of why I decided to start this Inspiring Hope radio show, because it just feeds the negativity. And what we need to do is feed the positive. There are so many more positive people. There's so much more positivity out there. But when we get stuck in that negative loop, you're right, it is hard to shift out of it. So this is where giving people tools, check in with your therapist. You can reach out to a hypnotist. I am not a therapist, I'm a hypnotist. I help people change their minds with the power of thought, doing pattern interrupts, shifting, retraining your mind for the positive, but definitely reach for help if you're stuck in that negative loop. And many people are liking my Facebook page, Lois Herman Success Coach. I post daily doses of inspiration, and I'm friends with a lot of people who are posting fabulous things, and I reshare them. So I invite you to find people who are sharing positive in the wake of this negative storm, because if we can support one another, we can weather the storm together. And that's what it's about, is coming together. We're isolated from each other physically, but that doesn't mean that we have to be completely isolated. We can use the technology that we have to connect and be present with one another, truly listen to one another, be there, and feel with one another in order to shift their energy. And it also helps you. It helps you to feel good. So you are listening to Art and Lois on the Inspiring Hope Show with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590. And I'm delighted to have Art be my soundboard guy here today, and yet he's full of amazing. Isn't he awesome? Isn't he awesome? So thank you, Art, for being here.
You're welcome.
And I wanted to share with, over the years of helping people to stay positive and to boost their immune system, to keep themselves healthy and happy, I help people connect with their inner wisdom, their wise mind, whatever that is to them, their higher power, Jesus, angels, an angel named Fred. It doesn't matter to me. I'm helping the client connect with their wisdom. And I had a unique opportunity to help a very interesting gentleman connect with higher sources of wisdom, and it just kind of shocked me. That's not, I'm just doing what I do because I love what I do. And these amazing ones came from Universal Energy and others to give insights as to what we as humans can do to shift out of the negativity. They're very concerned about the path that humanity is on, that if we don't change our ways, we are going to end up in a really bad place, which is kind of where we're at now. This is a bit of a wake-up call to allow us to pay attention to what really matters. So these wise ones came through and gave us amazing insight. It's called channeling. This gentleman named Gary had no awareness of them coming through him. He was a pretty incredible person and still is. But through this, what I realized is they were talking to me, asking me to get this word out there. Like I said, I'm an introvert. I love what I do. I have no desire to be, famous and all that stuff, but I do have a passion for helping to share the messages, because the messages weren't for me, they're for you. They're for humanity. And so I help people by creating these messages, and we're putting them out. I have an amazing team of people who are helping me, and we're putting them out on social media free. They're on YouTube, they're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We're putting everything out there. And then we also have the book. If you want to purchase the book and read the entire transcript, you're absolutely welcome to do that. My husband would be happy because it might help defray some of the cost involved. But we are putting these out there because the messages are to help humanity to shift. They basically told us that this was coming. They've been telling us all along. You have to pay attention to what's going on, because there's one of the messages that they gave us is that there is too much greed in the world, that there is enough. People need to know there is no scarcity. There is enough. And think about all the people who are hoarding the hand sanitizer, the toilet paper, they're coming from a place of greed. And then they're selling it for $100 and some dollars. That's really sad. When people who are poor, who could use it, better to, if you're going to buy a bunch of it, take it and distribute it. Give it to people who don't have it.
Absolutely. And I think that, you have in the people being greedy and gobbling up all of the merchandise. I mean, I think that there are those people, I guess, until now I didn't really think of it, but there are people who are genuinely scared and they want to make sure they have enough to get by until maybe overreacting. And then there are the people who are capitalizing on other people's paranoia and fear right now, and they're going to try to make a buck on it. Though I have my own opinions of that, and I'll keep that to myself, but it's wrong.
Yeah.
They're doing that.
Yes.
It makes it, especially for the elderly, so that now the supermarkets have to, have special hours just for them, so that they can go there and get what they need to get, and not have to deal with anybody else being, going there to buy everything up.
Yeah, I had the privilege of doing that yesterday morning.
So how has your experience been when you've had to go to the supermarket?
It was wonderful. I have to say, I met this gentleman. He was putting his groceries in my cart, and I said, "I'm happy to take those home, but you're probably going to be disappointed when you get home and your groceries aren't there." And he says, "Oh, you can tell I don't usually shop." And then he comes up to me later and he laughs. He says, "Look, I now know what a turnip looks like." So the interactions that I've had with people have been very positive. People, they're keeping a distance, but they're very positive, and that's important. I did hear one woman talking about her husband who's a trucker and how much stress he is under because of they are only allowed to drive so many hours, and there's a lot of restrictions, and yet they're pressured. So different people are feeling different types of stress. But I wanted to share this whole thing about the toilet paper. I have a solution.
All right.
Okay, are you ready for this?
Sure.
Okay, when my babies were little, I used cloth diapers. So why don't we use these old T-shirts? Okay, cut them up. If you get desperate, and then you just rinse them out in the toilet and you throw them in the washing machine with some bleach, hey, that's the same thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of new mothers on quite on board with that. It's bad. I shouldn't even say anything because I've never had kids. I don't know what it's like to go through changing diapers or anything like that. But
well, you do have to have the plastic over.
What's got to be done has got to be done.
Yeah.
But. God, I don't even think. I think I had diapers when I was a kid. I think I was like in the generation probably when parents, like mom, stopped using cloth diapers and safety pins.
I know my mother shunned me because I was one of the first in the generation to breastfeed or nurse my children, and she was disgusted because she was a generation that, my generation was bottle fed, and that was what Dr. Spock said you're supposed to do. So I was kind of a rebel, and I did both, breastfed and I used cloth diapers because to me that was, I just wanted to do the best for my children. But hey, if you need to get back to it, use the old T-shirts, the rags. And somebody said, "Oh,
Old
that's
socks.
a good old socks, those unmatched socks that you can throw them away." Actually,
socks, right.
So there are solutions, right? So one of the other messages is that humanity almost seems to enjoy suffering. Suffering and conflict promote growth and strength, but that growth can take many paths. People need to choose a path that promotes harmony as opposed to a path that promotes conflict. So right now, we're suffering from the side effects of this virus. Yet we can appreciate that there's a shift that's happening as a result that can shake us up. What do you choose to do with this change in your life? You can choose to be angry and fearful, or you can allow yourself to breathe into the change and appreciate slowing down, to take inventory of what is important. So the Italians, I had read recently, I'd been to Venice many years ago, and for years the dolphins have not been swimming in the waters in Venice. I've read recently that the waters were so polluted. And now that the people are all indoors, it's giving Mother Nature a chance to heal. And the dolphins, I recently read the dolphins are back in the waters in Venice again for the first time in decades. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So there are upsides to this, and we have to, nature is going on. This is affecting humans. Specifically, it's a human wake-up call. Look at what you're doing. Look at what's important. Take care of yourself. Take care of those around you. Take care of your communities. Take care of each other. And one of the things that was transmuted to us is you must learn to cooperate. You must harmonize. People need to love each other. It's a matter of simple compassion. And this was a message, the exact message that Jesus delivered 2,000 years ago that's been lost in translation. And right now, when you look at the media, there's so much anger, hate, and greed, and we've just been polarized. This little nasty bug is giving us an opportunity to stop the chaos and truly share compassionately with one another as we actually start to feel and relate to one another. Everyone is experiencing this differently, but that doesn't mean one is right or one is wrong. It's about coming from a place of understanding. Because one of the sessions, Jesus taught us that, in a sense, you are all one. You are all children of the earth. You are all one species. And hey, what better way to understand that than have a bug that does not discriminate or differentiate among race, gender, country of origin? We're all human. The humans are all being infected by this bug. We are all one. The elderly are more vulnerable, so we must be concerned for their well-being, and we should take steps to stay healthy for those who are more vulnerable, those who have underlying autoimmune or other diseases, and for the elderly. So if we take some precautions now, if we stay home and take care of ourselves, keep ourselves healthy, then we are showing compassion for one another. Does that make sense to you, Art?
Yes, it does.
So this one's a little bit strongly stated. Humanity has a choice, and it's a very simple choice. Either they learn to live together, or they face extinction. Powerful. And yet think about it. This little bug is not going to take us out. It's going to wake us up. And seriously, we've faced world wars, genocide, the Great Depression, earthquakes, fires, terrorism, hurricanes. We've faced a lot. We rise above it, and we will rise above this. Without blame or shame, we embrace the beauty in each other, and we do what we can to support each other for health, because all life in the universe is tied together. We're brother and sister to each other. And this little nasty bug has shown us that. So in many ways, we can, I don't want to say be grateful for it, but it is a wake-up call. And how we respond, that's what's the most important. One of the other things that was said is we view ourselves as being isolated and alone, and this is not the case. We are truly one organism, one civilization called humanity. But hate is a symptom that comes from that separation, from the thought that we are alone. It's the isolation that humans feel that cause the hatred. So, we're isolated in countries, one thinking one is better than the other or worse than themselves. Having traveled much in my life, I can appreciate that there are many differences, yet the longing to live, love, and belong are universal. We're being isolated now, yet we can be present to each other as we slow down and focus on what's important. Art, have you traveled much in your life?
The furthest I've ever traveled was to the lower part of Brazil. So that was also my first time flying and my first time out of the country entirely, not just merely going to another state. That was my up until that point. I'd never been and never really traveled, not counting road trips. But I guess But So I guess to answer your question, I've traveled.
Yeah,
So.
And nowadays we're going to not see a lot of travel. We're going to be traveling virtually for a while, and I'm honored and privileged to have lived 7 years abroad and traveled to 30-something countries. So I've done a lot of travel, and I've always been fascinated by the similarities, the differences, and the similarities.
Yeah,
because
I noticed that too. It's like, well, this kind of feels like I'm in America, or the United States, but you can tell it's just not the same.
Right.
You just know.
Yeah. So I wanted to share what Mother Gaia said. If humans were more aware of their own interconnectedness with everything else and realized that every action they take has consequences far beyond those they could even foresee, and modified their actions to allow for the consequences they can foresee, that would be enough to change humanity. So it's about being mindful, being aware, being kind. And that's, I without going into a lot more, we'll have to pick this up next time. But there was a quote from Nelson Mandela that I looked up. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And this man went through a lot. You can research his life. But he came out of it with a feeling of positivity. And that's what we need to do. We need to stay in a state of positive, of hope, of taking this time to do some introspective work, to look at what's most important. And what we can do is to connect with others, to embrace nature, to do what brings you joy. We've got a little bit of time now to do that, to smile and laugh. Turn off the news, dose yourself with negativity. Make healthy choices. Ask for assistance. Practice some form of prayer for yourself, but for others, for those that are really suffering through this. And practice gratitude. Be grateful for what you do have. Use whatever grounds you, from Reiki to whatever. So you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman. I'll see you next week. Meanwhile, look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. Take good care of yourself.